The great hall of the Valorian Empire was filled with thousands of guests. They had come from every corner of the galaxy to witness something that had never happened before. A princess of the mighty Valorian race was about to marry a human. Princess Zilara stood at the center of the hall. She was 7 feet tall with silver skin that glowed softly under the lights. Her eyes were deep purple, and her long white hair fell past her shoulders like a waterfall of snow. She wore armor made of crystal and gold, because even at her own wedding, a Valorian princess was expected to look like a warrior. Her people were known across the galaxy as the greatest fighters ever born. They were fast, strong, and lived for battle. For 3,000 years, the Valorian Empire had conquered star system after star system. No one had ever beaten them in open combat. No one had even come close. But then the humans arrived. Humanity had only been traveling among the stars for 200 years. They were young, small, and weak compared to most alien races. When they first met the Valorians, everyone expected the humans to be crushed within a week. But that did not happen. The war dragged on for 5 long years. The humans did not win, but they did not lose either. They fought in ways no one had ever seen before. They were unpredictable, clever, and refused to give up no matter how many times they were beaten. Finally, the Galactic Council stepped in and demanded peace. Both sides were tired of fighting. The treaty was signed, and to seal the agreement, a marriage was arranged. Princess Zilara, third daughter of the Valorian Emperor, would marry a human chosen by the Human Alliance. Zilara had accepted her duty without complaint. She was a soldier. She followed orders. But deep inside, she felt only shame. Marrying a human was like marrying an insect. It was beneath her in every way. The doors at the far end of the hall opened, and the human delegation walked in. Zilara watched them approach with cold eyes. There were 5 of them, all dressed in simple black uniforms. They looked so small compared to the Valorians around them. So fragile. She could probably break any of them in half with one hand. Then she saw him. Her future husband walked at the front of the group. His name was Daniel Cole. She had seen pictures of him before, but seeing him in person was different. He was about 6 feet tall with short brown hair and brown eyes. He had a kind face and a calm expression. He walked slowly, looking around at the great hall with quiet curiosity, not fear. He was not ugly, Zilara admitted to herself. For a human, he was probably considered handsome. But by Valorian standards, he was nothing special. He had no visible muscles. He carried no weapons. He moved without any of the power or grace that Valorian warriors spent their whole lives developing. He looked weak. He looked soft. He looked like a gentle breeze could knock him over. Zilara leaned toward her advisor, a tall Valorian woman named Counselor Mirith. "This is what they send us?" she whispered. "This is supposed to be their best?" Mirith's face remained calm. "The humans chose him specifically for this role, Your Highness. He's said to be a diplomat and a scholar. They value such things." "A scholar," Zilara repeated with disgust. "I am marrying a man who reads books instead of fighting battles." Daniel reached the platform where Zilara stood. He looked up at her, and for a moment, their eyes met. Zilara expected to see fear or nervousness in his gaze. Instead, she saw something she did not expect. His eyes were calm and steady, like the surface of a still lake. There was no pride in them, but there was no shame either. He smiled at her. It was a small, warm smile, as if he was genuinely happy to meet her. "Princess Zilara," he said. His voice was soft but clear. "Thank you for accepting me. I know this arrangement was not your choice, and I want you to know that I will do everything I can to be a good husband to you." Zilara did not know what to say. She had expected him to tremble before her. She had expected him to beg for her approval. Instead, he spoke to her like an equal. Like he had nothing to prove. It annoyed her. "We shall see," she replied coldly. The ceremony began. It was long and filled with ancient Valorian traditions. Daniel stood through all of it without complaint. He repeated the words he was told to repeat. He performed the rituals he was shown. He did everything correctly, even though Zilara knew he could not possibly understand what any of it meant. At the end of the ceremony, Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden box. He opened it and held it out to Zylara. Inside was a ring. It was made of simple steel, with no jewels or decorations. It was the plainest piece of jewelry Zilara had ever seen. "This is a tradition from my world," Daniel explained. "When two people marry, they exchange rings as a symbol of their bond. I made this one myself. I know it is not valuable compared to Valorian treasures, but where I come from, we believe the value of a gift is in its meaning, not its weight." Zilara stared at the ring. A Valorian groom would have given her a weapon forged in the heart of a dying star. A crown made of conquered metals. Something that showed strength and power. This human was giving her a piece of cheap metal he had made with his own hands. She took the ring and slipped it onto her finger without a word. It fit perfectly. "Thank you," she said, because protocol demanded she say something. Daniel smiled again. "I hope that one day you will wear it because you want to, not because you have to." Zilara looked at him sharply. There was no challenge in his voice, no hidden anger. He meant exactly what he said, nothing more. The wedding feast began. Thousands of guests ate and drank and celebrated the new peace between their peoples. Valorian warriors boasted about their conquests. Human diplomats talked about trade and cooperation. Music played. Laughter filled the hall. Through it all, Zilara sat beside her new husband and said almost nothing. She watched him eat small portions of food. She watched him sip his drink slowly. She watched him speak politely to everyone who approached him, never raising his voice, never showing off. He was nothing like the men she had grown up admiring. He was nothing like the warriors who had won her respect. He was quiet, gentle, and completely unremarkable. She had married a lamb, and she had never felt more disappointed in her entire life. As the night went on, Zilara made a silent promise to herself. She would fulfill her duty as a wife. She would keep the peace between their peoples. But she would never respect this man. She would never admire him. She would never see him as anything more than what he appeared to be. A weak, soft, fragile human. She had no idea how wrong she was. 6 months had passed since the wedding, and Daniel Cole had become the most talked about person on the Valorian flagship. The ship was called the Eternal Victory. It was enormous, nearly 5 miles long, with enough room for 10,000 soldiers and their families. It was the pride of the Valorian fleet, and it was now Daniel's home. Every day, he walked through its halls. Every day, the Valorian soldiers stared at him. Some stared with curiosity. Most stared with contempt. They called him names behind his back. The pet, the soft one, the little husband. They laughed at the way he walked, the way he spoke, the way he seemed completely out of place among their kind. Daniel heard all of it. He never responded. He spent his days reading in the ship's library, learning about Valorian history and culture. He spent his evenings walking through the observation decks, staring out at the stars. He was always polite to everyone he met. He always smiled. He always spoke softly. The Valorians did not understand him at all. Commander Thyron understood him least of all. Thyron was Princess Zylara's younger brother. He was tall and muscular, with silver skin and eyes like burning coals. He was one of the greatest warriors on the ship, and he hated Daniel with every fiber of his being. "It disgusts me," Thyron said one day, sitting in the officers' mess with his fellow commanders. "My sister married that creature. A human. A weakling who cannot even lift a training blade. The other officers nodded in agreement. "He refuses every challenge," one of them said. "I asked him to spar with me last week. He smiled and said, 'No, thank you.' Like I had offered him a cup of tea instead of a chance to prove himself. He has no honor," another added. "No pride. He walks among warriors and acts like a servant." Tyron slammed his fist on the table. "I will break him. I will prove to my sister that she married nothing but a coward." That evening, Tyron found Daniel in the observation deck. The human was standing alone, watching a distant nebula swirl with colors of blue and gold. "Human," Tyron called out. Daniel turned around. "Commander Tyron." "Good evening. I want to ask you something," Tyron said, walking closer. He towered over Daniel by more than a foot. "Do your people know how to fight? Or do you simply run away when danger comes?" Daniel's expression did not change. "We know how to fight. Then why do you refuse every challenge? Why do you act like a coward in front of my people?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "I was taught that a sword drawn without purpose is just noise. I have not found a purpose yet." Tyron stared at him. Then he burst out laughing. "Just noise? That is your excuse. That is why you hide from every battle?" "I am not hiding," Daniel said calmly. "I am waiting. Waiting for what?" "For something worth fighting for." Tyron shook his head in disgust. "You are everything I thought you were. A weak little man with weak little excuses. My sister deserves better than you." He turned and walked away, leaving Daniel alone with the stars. That night, the story spread through the entire ship. The human had called battle just noise. The human said he was waiting. The soldiers laughed harder than ever. Even the servants giggled when Daniel walked by. Princess Zilara heard the story too. She was in her private quarters when Counselor Mirith told her what her brother had said. Zilara closed her eyes and sighed. "Every day, he finds a new way to embarrass me. Your husband or your brother?" Mirith asked. "Both." Zilara stood up and walked to the window. "I have tried to find something to admire in Daniel. I have watched him for months. He is kind. He is patient. He is intelligent. But none of that matters here. In this world, strength is everything. And he has none." Mirith hesitated. "May I speak freely, Your Highness?" "You may. I have been observing the human as well. There is something about him that I cannot explain. He never seems afraid. He never seems nervous. He walks through a ship full of people who hate him, and he smiles like he does not have a care in the world." Zilara frowned. "That is not strength. That is ignorance. He does not understand the danger he is in." "Perhaps," Mirith said. "Or perhaps he understands it better than we think." Zilara dismissed the idea with a wave of her hand. She had made up her mind about Daniel long ago. Nothing would change it. But later that night, something happened that planted a small seed of doubt in her heart. She could not sleep, so she decided to take a walk through the ship. She found herself on the observation deck, the same place where Daniel had embarrassed himself earlier. He was there again, standing in the same spot. But this time, something was different. He stood perfectly still, his hands clasped behind his back. His posture was straight and solid. His breathing was slow and deep. He stared out at the stars with an expression Zilara had never seen before. There was no smile, no softness, no gentle warmth. His face was like stone. His eyes were focused and sharp. Every muscle in his body seemed coiled and ready, like a spring pressed down and waiting to release. Zyl stopped in the doorway and watched him. For a moment, just a brief moment, she did not see a weak scholar standing there. She saw something else, something older, something patient, something dangerous. Then Daniel turned his head slightly. He noticed her standing there, and just like that, the expression was gone. The smile returned. The warmth came back to his eyes. "Princess Zilara," he said pleasantly, "I did not expect to see you here. Would you like to watch the stars with me?" Zilara did not answer. She stared at him, trying to find the person she had seen just seconds ago. But he was gone. Only the gentle scholar remained. "No," she finally said. "I was just passing by." She turned and walked away, her mind racing. What had she just seen? Was it real, or had she imagined it? She did not know. But for the first time since their wedding, Princess Zilara began to wonder if there was more to her human husband than she had believed. Maybe Counselor Mirith was right. Maybe Daniel understood his situation better than anyone realized. The question was, what was he waiting for? And what would happen when he finally found his purpose? Zilara did not know the answers yet, but soon, very soon, she would find out. The attack came on a quiet morning. The Eternal Victory was traveling through a remote part of space, visiting small colonies along the border of Valorian territory. It was supposed to be a peaceful journey, a chance for Princess Zilara to meet her people and show them their future queen. No one expected trouble. No one was prepared for what happened next. The Keth Syndicate had been planning this for months. They were a group of pirates and criminals from a distant part of the galaxy. They hated the Valorians. They hated the peace treaty with the humans. And they saw the royal wedding as the perfect target. Their ships came out of nowhere. Dozens of them. They were fast and heavily armed. Before the Valorian crew could react, the enemy was already cutting through the hull. Alarms screamed through the corridors. Soldiers ran to their battle stations. Commander Thyron shouted orders as his warriors grabbed their weapons and rushed to meet the invaders. Princess Zilara was in the throne room when the attack began. She was meeting with diplomats from 3 different planets. When the explosion started, she immediately drew her blade and moved toward the door. "Everyone stay calm," she commanded. "Guards, form a protective circle around the diplomats. No one gets through." Her guards obeyed instantly. 10 of the best warriors on the ship surrounded the frightened diplomats. Zilara stood at the front, her crystal blade gleaming in her hand as the doors exploded inward. Keth soldiers poured into the room. They were insect-like creatures with hard shells and 4 arms. Each arm held a different weapon. They moved fast, clicking and hissing as they attacked. Zilara met them head-on. She was magnificent. Her blade cut through 3 enemies before they could take 2 steps. She moved like lightning, dodging attacks, striking back, never stopping. But there were too many of them. For every Keth she killed, 2 more took its place. Her guards fell one by one. The diplomats screamed and ran for cover. The room filled with smoke and the smell of burning metal. Then a plasma bolt hit Zilara in the shoulder. The pain was incredible. She stumbled and fell to one knee. Her blade slipped from her fingers and clattered to the floor. She tried to stand, but her body would not obey. The Keth soldiers surrounded her. Their leader walked forward slowly. He was bigger than the others, with a scarred shell and cold black eyes. His name was Vrex, and he commanded the entire syndicate. "The mighty Valorian princess," Vrex said. His voice was like metal scraping against stone. "Not so mighty now." Zilara glared at him with pure hatred. "Kill me if you want. My people will hunt you across the galaxy." "Oh, I do not want to kill you," Vrex replied. "You are worth much more alive. Your father will pay anything to get his precious daughter back." He looked around the ruined throne room. "But where is your famous husband? The human? Did he run away and hide like the coward he is?" Zilara said nothing. She realized she had not seen Daniel since the attack began. She did not know where he was. Part of her was not surprised. Of course he would hide. Of course he would run. It was exactly what she had expected from him. But another part of her, A small part remembered what she had seen on the observation deck. That stone face, those sharp eyes, that coiled readiness. The doors at the back of the throne room opened. Everyone turned to look. The Keth soldiers raised their weapons. Rex narrowed his eyes. Daniel Cole walked into the room. He moved slowly, calmly, like he was taking an evening walk through a garden. His face showed no fear. His eyes were steady. In his right hand, he carried something that made Xylar's breath catch in her throat. It was a sword, not a plasma blade, not an energy lance, not any of the advanced weapons the galaxy had created over thousands of years. It was a simple sword made of steel. The blade was long and slightly curved. It gleamed under the emergency lights with a cold, pure shine. Daniel stopped about 20 feet from the Keth soldiers. He held the sword at his side, pointing toward the ground. "I am right here," he said. Rex stared at him for a moment. Then he started laughing. It was an ugly sound, like rocks grinding together. "This is the human everyone talks about? This little creature with his ancient toy?" Rex shook his head. "I almost feel sorry for you, Princess. Your empire married you to a fool." Daniel did not respond to the insult. He simply stood there, watching, waiting. Rex waved his hand at 4 of his soldiers. "Kill him. Make it quick. We have more important things to do." The 4 Keth soldiers moved forward. They were fast. Their bodies were built for speed and killing. Each one had killed hundreds of enemies in their lives. They expected this to be easy. They were wrong. Daniel moved. It was not like anything Xylara had ever seen. He did not charge forward like a Valorian warrior. He did not shout or roar or make any sound at all. He simply flowed toward the enemy like water running downhill. His sword came up in a smooth arc. The first Keth soldier fell before he even raised his weapon. The blade had passed through a gap in his armor so quickly that no one saw it happen. Daniel kept moving. He stepped to the side, letting the second soldier's attack pass by his head. His sword flashed again. The second soldier collapsed. The third and fourth soldiers attacked together. Daniel spun between them like a dancer. His blade sang through the air, quick and precise. Both soldiers fell at the same time. The whole thing took less than 5 seconds. Daniel stood among the 4 bodies. He was not breathing hard. He was not sweating. His expression had not changed at all. He looked at Rex with those calm, steady eyes. "Would you like to send more?" he asked. The throne room was completely silent. Every Keth soldier stared at Daniel like they were seeing a ghost. Even Rex looked shocked. Xylara could not believe what she had just witnessed. This was her husband? This was the weak little scholar who refused every challenge. This was the man she had pitied and despised for 6 months? She watched him standing there among the fallen enemies, his ancient sword dripping with blood, and she realized she had never known him at all. The battle was far from over. Rex still had dozens of soldiers. The ship was still under attack. Everything could still go wrong. But in that moment, Princess Xylara understood something that changed everything. Her husband was not weak. He had never been weak. He had simply been waiting for the right moment to show what he really was. And now, finally, that moment had come. Rex could not believe what he was seeing. 4 of his best soldiers lay dead on the floor, killed by a creature half their size with nothing but a piece of old metal. "What are you?" he demanded. Daniel did not answer the question. Instead, he took a step forward, then another. His movements were slow and deliberate. His sword hung at his side, ready but not raised. "I am going to give you one chance," Daniel said. His voice was calm and quiet. "Take your soldiers. Leave this ship. Never come back. If you do that, you will live." Rex's shock turned into rage. "You dare threaten me?" You killed 4 soldiers. I have 40 more in this room alone. You are nothing but a single human with a primitive weapon. Yes, Daniel agreed. I am exactly that. He kept walking forward. Rex snarled and raised his hand. Kill him. Kill him now. Everyone attack at once. The Keth soldiers surged forward. All of them. They came from every direction, their weapons raised, their bodies moving at incredible speed. It was a wave of death rushing toward one small human standing alone. Solara watched from where she had fallen. Her shoulder was still burning with pain, but she could not look away. She expected to see Daniel overwhelmed. She expected to see him torn apart by the swarm of enemies. Instead, she saw something impossible. Daniel moved through the Keth soldiers like wind through leaves. He did not try to block every attack. He did not try to fight every enemy at once. He simply was not where their weapons were. He stepped, turned, ducked, and flowed. Every movement was small and precise. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was rushed. And every time he moved, his sword moved with him. The blade cut through armor, through weapons, through flesh. It found gaps that should not have existed. It struck at angles that should not have been possible. Daniel did not swing wildly or use brute force. He placed each cut exactly where it needed to go. 1 Keth fell, then 2, then 5, then 10. The other Valorians in the room watched in stunned silence. Commander Thyron had arrived with reinforcements just in time to see the battle unfold. He stood in the doorway, his own weapon forgotten in his hand. Impossible, he whispered, but it was not impossible. It was happening right in front of them. Daniel reached the center of the throne room. Bodies lay scattered around him. The surviving Keth soldiers had stopped attacking. They stood in a circle, afraid to move forward, afraid to move back. They had never seen anything like this. Their entire lives, they had believed that speed and strength were everything. The bigger, the faster, the more powerful creature always won. That was the law of the universe, but this human was not big. He was not fast by their standards. He was not powerful at all. He was something else entirely. Rex pushed through his soldiers. His scarred face twisted with fury and fear. What kind of trick is this? What technology are you hiding? Daniel lowered his sword slightly. No tricks. No technology. Just skill. That is impossible. Your kind has only been in space for 200 years. We have been warriors for 10,000. No species learns to fight like that in 200 years. Daniel smiled slightly. It was not a warm smile. It was a cold, dangerous expression that Zalara had never seen on his face before. You are right, he said. We have only been in space for 200 years. But we have been fighting each other for 200,000 years. Long before we knew other species existed. Long before we had starships or plasma weapons or anything else. He raised his sword and looked at it. The blade gleamed red with blood. This weapon is called a katana. It was created by my ancestors on Earth, nearly 1,000 years ago. They spent centuries perfecting its design. They spent centuries learning how to use it. Not to conquer other planets. Not to fight aliens. Just to fight each other. Daniel looked back at Rex. My people did not survive by being the strongest or the fastest. We survived by learning, by practicing, by passing down knowledge from generation to generation. I have trained with this sword since I was 6 years old. I have studied the techniques of masters who died before your species even existed. He pointed the blade at Rex. You asked what I am. I am a student of the old ways. And right now, I am very, very angry. Rex backed away. For the first time, there was real fear in his eyes. He looked around at his remaining soldiers. More than half of them were dead or wounded. The others looked like they wanted to run. "This is not over," Rex growled. "The Syndicate will remember this." "Good," Daniel said. "Remember it well. And remember what I told you. If you ever threaten my wife again, I will not offer you mercy a second time." He walked toward Rex. The Keth leader stumbled backward. Suddenly looking small despite his massive size, Daniel stopped in front of him and pressed the edge of his blade against Rex's throat. The metal was cold against the alien's skin. "Yield," Daniel said quietly. "Order your soldiers to leave. Do it now, and your crew lives. Continue fighting, and I will show you exactly what humans do when something we love is threatened." Rex stared into Daniel's eyes. He saw no bluff there, no weakness, no hesitation. He saw only certainty. The Keth leader swallowed hard. "Stand down," he ordered his soldiers. "Everyone back to the ships. We are leaving." The surviving Keth soldiers obeyed instantly. They gathered their wounded and retreated through the holes they had cut in the hull. Within minutes, they were gone. Their ships detached from the Eternal Victory and jumped into hyperspace, running away as fast as their engines could carry them. The battle was over. Daniel lowered his sword. He stood there for a moment, breathing slowly, letting the tension leave his body. Then he turned and walked towards Zilara. She was still on the ground, clutching her wounded shoulder. She watched him approach with wide eyes. Her mind was struggling to understand what she had just witnessed. Daniel knelt beside her. His face softened. The cold warrior disappeared, and the gentle husband returned. He examined her wound with careful hands. "You need medical attention," he said. "Can you stand?" Zilara stared at him. "What are you?" Daniel met her eyes. "I am your husband. I am the man who promised to protect you. That is all I have ever been. But all this time, the way you acted, the challenges you refused, a sword drawn without purpose is just noise." Daniel repeated the words he had told Thyron months ago. "I told everyone the truth. They just did not believe me." He helped her to her feet. Pelorian medics rushed forward to treat her wound. Commander Thyron approached slowly, looking at Daniel like he was seeing him for the first time. "I owe you an apology," Thyron said quietly. "I called you a coward. I was wrong." Daniel shook his head. "You judged me by what you could see. Most people do. I have learned to accept that." Thyron looked at the bodies scattered across the throne room. "My people will sing songs about what happened here today. I would prefer if they did not," Daniel replied. "I did not do this for glory. I did it because it needed to be done." He turned and looked at Zilara. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Something that had never been there before. Understanding. ZYL era finally saw her husband for what he truly was. Not weak, not soft, not fragile. Patient, controlled, deadly when needed. And gentle when the danger passed. She reached out and took his hand. For the first time since their wedding, she held it willingly. "Thank you," she whispered. Daniel smiled. It was the same warm smile he had given her on their wedding day. "I told you I would be a good husband," he said. "I meant it." 3 weeks had passed since the attack on the Eternal Victory. The ship had been repaired. The dead had been honored. And life had slowly returned to normal. But nothing was really normal anymore. Not for Princess Zilara. Not for the crew. And certainly not for Daniel Cole. The story of what happened in the throne room had spread across the entire Valorian Empire. People talked about it in markets and military bases. They discussed it in government halls and family homes. Everyone wanted to know about the human who had defeated 40 Keth soldiers with nothing but an ancient sword. Daniel had become famous, but he did not seem to enjoy it. He continued his quiet routines. He still read books in the library. He still watched the stars from the observation deck. He still spoke softly, and smiled warmly at everyone he met. The only difference was that now, people looked at him differently. They no longer saw a weak little creature. They saw a mystery, a puzzle they could not solve. Commander Thyron was one of the first to change his behavior. He found Daniel one morning in a quiet corner of the training hall. The human was alone, practicing slow movements with his katana. The sword flowed through the air in graceful arcs, almost like a dance. Thyron watched for a long time before speaking. "May I join you?" Daniel paused and looked at him. "Of course, Commander." Thyron walked closer. He stood at attention, which was something Valorian warriors only did when showing deep respect. "I wanted to apologize properly," Thyron said. "Not just for calling you a coward. For everything. The jokes, the insults, the challenges I kept pushing on you. I was cruel, and I was wrong." Daniel lowered his sword. "You were judging me by the only standards you knew. I cannot blame you for that, but I should have known better. I am a warrior. I was trained to observe, to understand my enemies. I looked at you every day for 6 months, and I never saw what you really were." Thyron shook his head. "That makes me a poor warrior indeed." Daniel considered this for a moment. "May I tell you something my teacher once told me?" "Please." "He said that the strongest warriors are not the ones who show their power to everyone. The strongest warriors are the ones who choose when to reveal themselves. Power that is always on display becomes predictable. It becomes weak. But power that is hidden—" Daniel raised his sword and held it in front of him. "Hidden power can strike when no one expects it." Thyron nodded slowly. "Your people learned that lesson long ago, did they not?" "We had no choice," Daniel replied. "We were never the biggest species on our planet. We were never the fastest. There were animals that could kill us easily. So we learned to be clever. We learned to work together. We learned to fight with our minds as much as our bodies." He resumed his practice movements. "By the time we became the dominant species on Earth, we had already developed thousands of years of combat knowledge. We created different martial arts for different situations. We built weapons of every kind. We studied warfare like it was a science." Thyron watched the sword move through the air. "And the way you fight? What is that called?" "It is called the way of the sword. In my language, we say kenjutsu. My family has practiced it for over 400 years. 400 years, Thyron repeated. Passed down through generations. Yes, my father taught me. His father taught him. And so on, back through time. Daniel smiled slightly. When I hold this sword, I am not alone. I carry the knowledge of everyone who held it before me. Thyron was quiet for a long moment. Then he bowed his head. I would be honored if you would teach me someday. Daniel stopped moving and looked at the Valorian commander with surprise. You want to learn from me? I want to understand. I want to see the world the way you see it. I spent my whole life believing that strength was everything. You have shown me that there is more to being a warrior than I ever imagined. Daniel extended his hand. It was a human gesture of friendship. Thyron took it. I would be happy to teach you, Daniel said. Later that evening, Zilara found her husband in their private quarters. He was sitting by the window, cleaning his katana with a soft cloth. The blade gleamed in the starlight. She sat down across from him and watched him work. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Finally, Zilara broke the silence. I owe you an apology as well. Daniel looked up. You do not owe me anything. Yes, I do. Zilara took a deep breath. I was ashamed of you. I looked at you and saw weakness. I thought marrying you was a punishment. I spent months feeling sorry for myself because I was bound to a man I did not respect. She shook her head. I was a fool. Daniel set down his sword and gave her his full attention. You were honest. I knew how you felt. I saw it in your eyes from the first moment we met. And you stayed anyway? You smiled and acted kind even though you knew I despised you. I hoped you would change your mind eventually, Daniel said simply. I knew that words would not convince you. Only actions would. So I waited for a chance to show you who I really am. Zilara felt tears forming in her eyes. She blinked them away quickly. Valorian princesses did not cry. I do not deserve your patience, she said. I do not deserve your kindness. Daniel reached out and took her hand. You deserve everything I can give you. You are my wife. I made a promise to stand beside you, to protect you, to be worthy of your trust. I intend to keep that promise. Zilara looked at their joined hands. His fingers were smaller than hers, softer than the hands of Valorian warriors. But she no longer saw weakness when she looked at them. She saw the hands that had saved her life. The hands that had held a sword with impossible skill. The hands that had chosen gentleness when they could have chosen violence. Will you teach me? She asked softly. Not just to fight. To see the world the way you do. To understand the patience and the control that your people have learned. Daniel smiled. It was the warmest smile she had ever seen. I would like nothing more. They began training together the very next day. Zilara learned quickly. She was already a skilled warrior, but Daniel taught her something new. He taught her to breathe, to wait, to observe before acting. He taught her that sometimes the best way to win a fight was to never start one. Months passed. The eternal victory continued its journey through the stars. Daniel and Zilara grew closer with each passing day. They talked for hours about their different cultures, their different histories, their different ways of seeing the universe. Zilara discovered that humans were far more complex than she had ever imagined. They were not just one thing. They could be gentle and deadly, patient and explosive, kind and ruthless. They contained contradictions that other species found impossible to understand. And Daniel discovered that Valorians were more than just warriors. They had art and music and poetry. They loved their families deeply. They had fears and hopes and dreams, just like everyone else thought two very different people from two very different worlds had found common ground. One night, Zilara looked at the steel ring on her finger. The same ring Daniel had given her on their wedding day. She had worn it out of duty at first. Now she wore it because she wanted to. I understand now, she said. Daniel looked at her. Understand what? What you said about this ring. That the value of a gift is in its meaning, not its weight. She smiled at him. This ring means more to me than all the treasures in the Empire. Daniel put his arm around her. They sat together in silence, watching the stars drift by. Princess Zilara had married a human thinking he was weak. She had discovered that he was one of the strongest people she had ever known. Not because of his sword. Not because of his fighting skills, because of his heart. And that, she realized, was what made humans truly special. They were small and fragile and lived such short lives. But they loved fiercely. They fought relentlessly. And they never, ever gave up. She was proud to call one of them her husband. She would be proud for the rest of her days.